I'm Stephen Kendrick and I'm running for mayor of Augusta. My dad started Augusta Blueprint over 50 years ago. I grew up right there, working, learning, and loving this city. I've served this community my whole life, from modernizing the tax commissioner's office to building youth leadership programs and bringing jobs to Augusta. Augusta's at a crossroads. We need someone who can build, grow, unite, and lead. Keep an open mind. Let me earn your vote the same way my family earned its place here, by working for it. All in for Augusta, all in for you. I'm Stephen Kendrick. Let me earn your vote.
Hello, I'm Stephen Kendrick, and I'm running for mayor of Augusta. And thank you for being here for our economic development series. During our last session, I promised you I would come back and talk about SPLOST and why South Augusta deserves strategic investment. These two interrelated topics are important to many in our community who ask for support in improving the way of life south of Gordon Highway. But I must be clear, the roadmap to that improvement takes a combination of things. Most importantly, a vision to see what's possible, the political will and leadership to make what's possible a priority, and the funding and financial resources to implement and execute the plan. Now, I'm sure we all can see what's possible in South Augusta. More retail, more dining options, more focus on creating South Augusta as an economic development hub. And if you can convince our political leadership to make South Augusta a priority, you're left with the final step, funding and resources. So how does Augusta's government help fund and jumpstart our collective vision if we now have our leadership's attention in making South Augusta a priority for investment? In Augusta, Georgia, our most obvious opportunity is with SPLOST. The SPLOST 9 package you will consider on May 19th includes about $375 million in projects. And take note, what our government leadership chooses to fund with SPLOST or any other funding tools that they have at their disposal tells a story. And the story for this SPLOST package and several other financial funding opportunities that have materialized over the last several years is simple. Downtown is important. And you know, it should be important. Downtown investment matters for cities, and how we support and invest there has your elected leadership's attention. If you don't believe me, the phrase follow the money would be appropriate here, as downtown has been the focus of recent funding from SPLOST, the Transportation Investment Act, the General Fund, the state of Georgia, all major funding streams. The beneficiaries are projects like the new downtown arena, the convention center at the Marriott, the Broad Street corridor, the riverfront improvements, the cyber center, just to name a few. These projects account for more than $500 million in public money, over $500 million. That's a great start. That's great momentum. That's what happens when government makes communities a priority. But a healthy city can't grow in just one area. Or as my grandmother used to say, you can't just water and fertilize the tomatoes you like if you want your whole garden to grow. I believe we have to find a way to cultivate Augusta's entire garden so we can be proud of everything it produces. Let's talk for a moment about some of the other areas we say we want to grow, more specifically, South Augusta. So while downtown has seen major investment from many sources over the years, South Augusta, particularly the Diamond Lakes area, has had a plan sitting on the shelf for decades that was supposed to create the same type of momentum. And if you've lived in Augusta for any amount of time, you've probably heard this story before. We pay for studies, we develop plans, but all too often we don't execute. Instead, those plans sit on the shelf for years before the community ever sees results. Here's the usual pattern. Identify a problem. Hire a consultant, receive a report, debate the findings, and then do another study because the first one has become outdated. That sound familiar? So I'm here to tell you something tonight. If you trust me with your vote, you won't have to worry about another new study or plan sitting on a shelf collecting dust because I just pulled this old plan off the shelf. This document is a plan for Diamond Lakes that was created years ago, 2001, a vision for South Augusta that was supposed to turn this area into a regional destination for recreation, families, and economic activity. But a look at the Diamond Lakes we have today tells you we haven't quite reached that goal. This 2001 plan has literally been available for review and use over 25 years while taxpayers have been waiting. What we now see is that leaders involved in the plan's creation saw something bigger than what we currently have, including a hub for recreation and wellness, a 9-hole par 3 golf course and driving range, a skate park and BMX track, expanded athletic fields, a health building, an amphitheater. The vision for Diamond Lakes was intended to create a place where residents and families want and deserve to spend their time, but it never really gained the momentum it deserved. Diamond Lakes is a part of Augusta's garden that my grandmother used to describe when you look at its lack of advancement. It feels like we tilled the soil, planted the seeds, but never came back to water and fertilize this part of the garden. So what happened? Well, as residents old and new continued to raise their often repeated concerns about South Augusta's lack of future products and amenities, government, and frankly, the community got distracted. Other new priorities came along. New ideas began bubbling to the top. New discussions of what could be. And before you knew it, we were going in another direction. Another big dream started gaining traction. A thoughtful group of residents got the local government's attention about this new next big thing, and people started to get excited. But once again, we fell into the same pattern as with Diamond Lakes 25 years ago. Here's another example of a great idea, even one with money approved, yet nothing to show on the ground. Let's take a listen.
Details tonight on the long-promised water park proposed for South Augusta. The city set aside $5 million in taxpayer money to help jumpstart a water park, but commissioners say Augusta is not planning to build it by themselves.
Back in 2021, the Augusta Commission approved the allocation of about $5 million from the SPLOST 8 tax program. But now, instead of building the whole project itself, Augusta's trying to recruit a private company to come in here and help fulfill the rest of the funding.
Finding a willing buyer who can build and maintain a water park is the next hurdle in a project that goes back 5 years.
Voters approved SPLOST funding in 2021, 5 years ago, with $5 million in seed money for the project. And today, it seems as though we're no closer to seeing that water park. The project still doesn't seem to have a clear timeline or plan.
What the plan is. Find out. I want to find out. What's the status of those things?
Well, South Augusta is hungry. We're hungry for some change, for some improvement, for something coming to South Augusta.
Those are recent clips. People like Tanya deserve answers, and people like Frank deserve to see real change. But there's something very important that I don't want you to miss. This conversation isn't just about South Augusta. Every part of Augusta has real needs. This is exactly what our campaign is about. Build, grow, unite, lead. And our platform and those words are about all of Augusta. Because the goal isn't to have one part of Augusta competing against another. The goal is to lift the entire city so we can all grow together. Every community in Augusta has different needs. And we need Augusta's government to lead in its role of creating the conditions for change and improvement. East Augusta needs things like grocery stores, infrastructure, and continued attention to improving their roadways and drainage. West Augusta is asking for walkable neighborhoods, sidewalks, green space, and improved and enhanced recreation facilities. Downtown still desires safe, secure, and well-lit streets and targeted investment into our untapped resource in the riverfront. And as mentioned earlier, South Augusta has been asking for more retail, more dining options, and possibly an investment in their parks and public spaces as well. Now let's turn back to SPLOST for a second. The SPLOST 9 package you're about to consider on May 19th actually will provide some funding for South Augusta. The area will receive $80 million for jail pods, and $25 million for sewer lines and connections. But when it comes to quality of life investments, the types of things families actually gather for, the types of things that bring in visitors to Augusta to spend their dollars, The types of things that make the streets and areas outside of our neighborhoods feel, well, like vibrant places of activity and business. The allocation comes down to about $5 million for upgrades at Diamond Lakes. And $5 million isn't going to build a par 3 golf course and driving range, let alone an amphitheater or a health center, or provide any meaningful progress toward a South Augusta water park. Now, I don't want to overlook our small steps. There are some improvements happening right now over at Diamond Lakes. Trail upgrades, shade structures, bench installations. Those are all good steps, but they're not the full vision this community was promised. Visions that were crafted first with the Diamond Lakes plan and now, more recently, with the proposed water park idea. We need to prioritize these projects or close them down and move on to something else. And that's why this conversation matters. Because what happens in South Augusta is directly connected to what happens in the rest of Augusta. It's important for me to repeat, this is not about creating a competition for dollars or attention between parts of town. For me, this is about providing a clear vision and commitment to pursue a real economic development strategy. Investing in these areas will provide an economic impact and pride that can't be measured. This is about building complementary projects that strengthen every part of Augusta, because that's how some of the most successful mid-sized cities grow. They build multiple centers of activity that showcase the city's ability to plan and deliver amenities to residents and the visitors that come throughout their city. You know, plans like the ones we've shared tonight shouldn't sit on a shelf like a museum piece. They should be a blueprint for how the community wants to grow. So here's my commitment to you, not just to South Augusta, but all of Augusta. I will not be the mayor who supports development of multiple studies and plans with no real leadership and commitment to see them through. If you give me the opportunity to serve as the leader of this city, we will review our current plans, update them where needed, and most importantly, take action to complete or move on. Together, we can and will build the kind of Augusta we all want and that our community deserves. Now I want to hear from you. We're opening up the Q&A. I want to ask the team to get me a monitor so I can see the questions and answer them live. And if you have questions about SPLOST, Diamond Lakes, development in your neighborhood, or any other type of question, hopefully you've been dropping those questions in the platform you're viewing from. And as a reminder, on April 2nd, we're taking a deeper dive into another major opportunity for Augusta's future, housing as an economic development catalyst. Where people choose to live, why housing shapes the growth of cities, how neighborhoods become communities, and how the homes we build today can help fund Augusta's tomorrow. So let's go to the questions. Let's take a look. All right, we got this one through email, kendrickformayor26@gmail.com. What are your plans for West Augusta and economic development? So as we mentioned today, this was not just about South Augusta. This is about all of Augusta, and West Augusta is an important part of our economic development future. It is the place where most people think you have to go in order to enjoy restaurants and retail. But if you've looked, West Augusta is starting to become a place that needs some revitalization as well. But besides that business aspect, the neighborhoods in West Augusta are screaming for more amenities like sidewalks, like enhanced recreation facilities, as we've discussed, like green space, dog parks, the types of things that make it to where you can walk out of your home, walk down the street. And as I heard a young man talk about today at a commission meeting, walk over and just play some pickleball. Those types of things are going to happen there as well. And we're going to have to concentrate on those. I appreciate the question. Next question. How do you justify spending so much downtown and neglecting other parts of Augusta? Well, I don't justify spending so much downtown or neglecting part of Augusta, other parts of Augusta at all. I do believe the money that's spent downtown is well-intentioned and will do things to help make our downtown a vibrant place. Downtowns are where we invite our families when they come in from out of town. Downtown is where our guests come when they come here for conventions and things like that, and they spend dollars. I think that's important. But I can't justify not going the other places as well. We have got to invest in all parts of Augusta, and that balance is what I believe is necessary. I believe that balance is what's missing. I believe that thoughtfulness that says downtown is important, but we need to sprinkle some fertilizer and water in all our other parts of the garden is what we need to concentrate on. Let's go to another question. I know you talk a lot about economic development, but what about the state of our local education system and youth? What are you doing and what is government's role? Well, when we talk about economic development versus helping our youth, I think that's an important part of the economic development equation. You see, when we recruit companies to Augusta, a lot of them are looking to make sure there's a workforce that's available and ready to work. And a lot of those very people are going to come from our education system and our youth. Proudly, I'm involved with 4 youth development programs. One of them I started 20 years ago called Youth Leadership Augusta. I'm also involved with and started the Youth Leadership Academy. I have a project that we do on Saturday for underserved called Project Impact. And I'm also involved with a program called Elevate Augusta that works in Richmond County's high schools. I spend an inordinate amount of time working with youth and developing youth. But I think they are the key because a lot of times these very students, when they leave their high school situation, they go to college. A lot of them don't come back home. And the ones who stay here don't find it the type of city that they want to stay in and live and bring up families. So I'm investing in those youth, and I'll continue to as mayor. I think government's role is to bring awareness to what's going on with our youth and in our system. We have to partner with our local school system and make sure we're able to provide as much support and as much opportunity for them to find ways to help their students. There's a board, trustees who manage our school system, and they do a pretty good job. But with the support of our local government, we can do great things together. And I think that's what it's going to require. Any other questions? Are you for or against the May SPLOST? I apologize if you answered it already. Well, I'm for doing what's best for Augusta. And I believe some portions of this SPLOST hit right on that. But I don't believe we got enough done to make sure all the areas are covered. I believe there are things we could have done better. I believe there are things we could have done to make sure that quality of life in all our spaces were there. I know it was a hard discussion for the commissioners, but I think there's a vision that was missing sometimes in putting that package together. The infrastructure and the public safety we did is important. That public safety is really, really important to make sure we stay safe. But we've also got to make sure we find that balance and not just have a safe city, but not a place where people want to actually come and stay and live in neighborhoods and have a good time. Everybody wants to have the type of city where you can actually have fun when family comes in town. And that SPLOST is a key funding tool to making sure some of that happens. So if an opportunity comes for us to have to be able to do that again, there's some things I think we can do better, and I hope to be a part of making those decisions. Next question. Okay, this is a long one. How will you correct sloppy record keeping? 2 separate auditing firms hired independently to review 2 different City of Augusta apartments reached the same conclusion. Years of weak oversight, inconsistent record keeping, and outdated policies have left the city unable to fully account for how public money was spent. The audits cover the Parks and Recreation Department and Housing and Community Development. I think this is a management problem. And I will repeat, this is a management problem. When you have departments that are having problems with their record keeping, It is up to our leadership to make sure those departments have the appropriate training and ability to do the things they need to do. When I led the tax commissioner's office over the years, attention to details and training and making sure our record keeping was exquisite was something we did very well. I have a track record for making sure things are in order. For 13 years, we delivered tax digests to the city of Augusta. We went to the state of Georgia and get their stamp of approval every year. Every city or county doesn't do that. But you never heard about the city of Augusta being able to not go out and bill because our records were always there. I'm an administrator. I'm a college professor. I'm someone who's worked in administration and business and government for a number of years, and I hope to put that expertise, that experience to work. That sloppiness, that inability stops on my watch because we're going to make sure the people in charge and the people who provide oversight are ready to do the work. Thank you for that question. Another question. Residents say Augusta's buildings feel plain and disjointed. As mayor, would you push for more modernist, sustainable, futuristic design standards in Augusta? Well, that's an interesting question. And I think there may be places in Augusta in which those types of things are important. There's opportunity through our planning department to help decide how neighborhoods look. And you can do overlays in which how a particular area looks comes to fruition. What you talk about, modernistic and future looking. There may be places in Augusta where that fits. It may not be downtown. It may not be in certain parts of West Augusta, but I believe there's a place everywhere to show the character of our city, but show the modern futuristic opportunities that we can find our way to use and capitalize on. I don't know where the right space is. I believe there are people smarter than me that can look at it, but I certainly believe that we shouldn't have a cookie cutter city where everything just looks the same. We've got to be diverse. We've got to be modern. And I believe that's an appropriate opportunity for us. Great question. Another question. Still trying to get it up? Okay. Do you have any other planned town halls or sessions this month for your campaign? I do. We talked about it a little bit. We've had a few now. This is our second. I've got some opportunities to do one that's going to come April 2nd. And then we're going to do one probably in May to talk about our government overall. I believe there's opportunities for us to continue to have this dialogue with the city and dialogue with citizens. And I want to make sure that I spend little short periods of time doing just that. My intent is never to keep you very long. My intent is to come in, give you the information that I have, answer a few questions, and then ask you that if you want to talk to me specifically, there's opportunities to do that as well. Just like some have done, you can call, you can email me at kendrickformayor26@gmail at any time, or you can call me at 706-383-9879. Those are opportunities for one-on-one conversations anytime you're ready. Or visit our website and send us a message, and let's continue to talk about building what's best for Augusta. I don't know if we're going to answer any more questions. They're telling me I may not, but I got some more. What is your thought on the push to halt the city's employment GMEB's pension, in particular for public safety due to the physicality and nature of their jobs? That's a great question. We use pensions and retirement as a recruitment tool for the city of Augusta. I know everybody believes that working for the government is some cush job with all of these perks, but the fact of the matter is government pay is not necessarily up to the levels of the private market, and we have to do things in order to make people want to stay and continue to give us their institutional knowledge. Pensions are one of the ways we do that. And it disturbs me that we're going to change and make it to where the public safety people who are working so hard are going to lose an opportunity to continue to have that security. I think it's something our commission and mayor need to reconsider. I think it's something we should be very deliberate on making sure we continue, because as we look to recruit firemen and policemen and those type of people who keep us safe every day, we don't want them to be able to walk out the back door to go somewhere else just because they found a better deal. Those retirements are sometimes the reason why, and we've got to do our best to make sure we do the best for those folks to keep them here. Any other questions we got for us, TJ? What's your opinion on the Masters buying all the property they have in Augusta? Businesses closing or moving, homes move. Is this a net positive for the citizens of Augusta? Well, if we're going to relate all those together, I think the purchase of the property to make our Washington Road corridor useful for the tournament can be acceptable as other parts of our city grow. See, here to me is what great opportunity. Washington Road is a road that comes right off of I-20, a major highway. And it drops people in who are coming to Augusta right as a way to get into our Augusta city and downtown. As we improve that corridor, as we continue to have businesses there, some of the things they've done in order to improve those parts, I think are just fine. They're a tax-paying citizen to the city. They probably pay the most taxes of anybody in our city. And with that comes a lot of economic development. But I think it's a great opportunity as they continue to improve those areas that we continue to go out to other places and do better. With the taxes that they pay, the millions and millions they pay, I'd love to take those dollars and invest in South Augusta or invest in East Augusta. Do some more things to help those other places. Washington Road is a corridor road, and the neighborhoods that are next door, they're pretty still intact. The ones that are immediately close to Washington Road, sure, there's been some space that's been created for parking. But outside of that, the next 100 yards, there's still neighbors, there's still families, there's still schools, and there's still opportunity. Another question, CJ? Is there anything specific you would like to see in South Augusta? Actually, there is. As I mentioned earlier, I want to see more restaurants. And I know some people get a little frustrated because of the concentration on restaurants. But guess what? People in South Augusta deserve to have a place for a sit-down meal too. When they want to go to Outback, and I mention Outback specifically because I have been actively recruiting that store to come to South Augusta, people want to go sit down in an Outback without having to drive across town. They don't want to have to go to North Augusta. They don't want to have to go all the way to another part of town to do the very thing some of us do just by walking out our door. I'd love to see a retail center with restaurants and even a hotel so that we can get a town center-like feel in parts of South Augusta. There are over 100,000 people who live south of Gordon Highway. It is one of our most populous areas, and yet it is a desert to some of the things that are there. Talk about grocery stores as well. Sure, we were successful in bringing a grocery store to Jimmy Dias Parkway. As chairman of the Economic Development Authority, I was a major part of making sure that Kroger was there. I signed some of the checks to get them there. But there's places further south where we'd like to see another Kroger. And guess what? We had conversations with the people in those stores when we were cutting the ribbon for Jimmy Dias, and they said, we haven't given up on Augusta. Those are the types of things it takes government to get involved in to help lead. And I'm willing to do the work. All right, any more? Oh, we're down to the last one. With the new data centers, and I guess this is going to be our last one unless they bring me another one, how will you ensure that they meet all environmental concerns? It's become really, really clear that the environment has become an issue for citizens with data centers. And I think we have to go really slow to see if we can make sure we know everything we need to know. Our government is going to have to put in protections through some of the agencies it works with to make sure our citizens are safe as data centers come to our town. They're probably an inevitable part of what we're going to have here. But there are things our government can do to make sure we're safe in that way. And being safe and keeping our environment a healthy environment is an important part of it. There are people who are watchdogs who are making sure that you hold government accountable. I want to be held accountable, and I want to continue to make sure that Augusta reaps all the benefits, but also has actions in order so that we can benefit from actually what those data centers could potentially bring. So I believe we're on our last question. Oh, we got another one. Are there any plans to help the homeless, maybe the tiny home communities, more shelters, rehabilitation centers? Well, Augusta has a homeless task force, and they've been working diligently, doing things to help find a solution for our homeless problem. But let's be clear, folks, we're never going to get rid of this problem. There's always going to be a part of our community that's going to be unhoused. And for whatever reason they got to that place in their life, government's role is to set the standard and be leaders in trying to find ways to either make sure that mental health wasn't a problem for them, access to health care wasn't a problem for them, or their finances weren't a problem for them. Government has a role in making sure those types of things are available in our city, that people can get to them. And government has to have its fingerprint on making sure that those things are available. Now, she mentioned tiny homes. There's a couple of tiny home communities that are going up, and some great people are doing it, but those are targeted to a different population right now. But who says government couldn't get involved in trying to solicit support on doing a tiny home community, transitional in nature, for people who are homeless as well? Nothing's off the table. What has to be on the table is our commitment to making sure we do the very best for our citizens, especially those who can't do for themselves. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Let's see. Got another one. What initiatives can we introduce to better support small businesses in our community? How can we bring in successful programs like those in Atlanta and Savannah that help business owners grow, scale, and thrive? Incredible question. As I mentioned earlier, I was chairman of the Augusta Economic Development Authority. I was also chairman of the Augusta Downtown Development Authority. And those are just two of the agencies that are helpful in trying to create the type of environment for small businesses to grow. Our local chambers of commerce, both the Metro Chamber of Commerce and the Black Chamber of Commerce, are business advocacy groups that always have training and programs that are available for citizens who are entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. But there's more that we can do. I propose that the city of Augusta have an economic development office that can help in these types of things. Most people don't know, but the city of Augusta does not have in government an economic development officer that is responsible for coordinating all the economic development through all the agencies that exist. I believe through an office like that, we'll have an opportunity to put everybody at the table, create the types of programs that small entrepreneurs can use to grow, learn how to procure from the city, get the appropriate training in banking and support. I believe it's available, and I believe a government has a role in doing so. Most businesses in our community are small businesses. Most jobs that people work at are for businesses that have 50 people or less. We've got to do more to grow those businesses as well. And as mayor, I'm going to make sure that we pay attention to making those small businesses grow. Last question, if we have one. What are we doing? What are we going to do about the huge eyesore in South Augusta? Can we also stop allowing dollar stores and car washes from popping up in our city? I'm not sure exactly which huge eyesore we're talking about here, but I can talk a little bit about dollar stores and car washes. I believe those businesses follow demand. And I believe that those dollar stores are filling a gap because we don't have the large grocers that are there. Government's recruitment and involvement in bringing large-scale grocers to our town is the answer to making sure those dollar stores don't continue to grow. You see, if you put a large grocer there, there's not a lot of reason for the dollar stores to exist because people have a choice. Those choices aren't always there. So our recruitment and our efforts need to be on having large-scale grocers like the newest ones that have come to town further in South Augusta. As for the car washes, I mean, hey, we're a city with a lot of sun, a lot of people with dirty cars. Maybe that's just where the demand is. But if your question is about how they look and how they are, I think there's things we can do to make sure that they look and belong in the right place. But guess what happens when you get businesses like cleaners and daycares and post offices? They come to town. The space for those car washes get pushed out. We've got to grow those small businesses too. And when we do so, we'd probably take care of some of those businesses you discussed. So I want to thank you for joining me tonight. And I hope I provided some information for you that you'll find useful in determining who should lead this city. I'm Stephen Kendrick. I'm running for mayor because I want to finalize the vision to build, grow, unite, and lead our city. And together, we can make sure every part of Augusta moves forward and we can watch our garden grow. As I mentioned earlier, contact me at kendrickformayor26@gmail.com or at 706-383-9879. See you during our next session on Thursday, April 2nd. Good night.